Hey, girls get friend-zoned too. Story 1. Back in college, I had a massive crush on one of my buddies. I'd slyly invite him over to study, doing my best Cher Horowitz impression from Clueless, together with all the hair flips and casually rolling off the bed. But seriously, nothing ever came out of it. I was convinced he was completely missing my not-so-subtle hints. After a couple of years, we had a New Year's party together. I had one too many drinks and spilled the beans, thinking it was my super-secret confession time. Shockingly, he admitted that he'd known about my feelings all along, and had been dodging my advances. It got pretty embarrassing for everyone involved. Now my sister had a similar awkward friend-zone moment too. She spilled the tea on how she kept getting friend-zoned by this dude she'd been tight with for like 3 years. Her feelings didn't kick in right away, but she thought she was picking up some vibes. Those vibes. One crazy night, they both ended up smashed and things happened. She thought, this is it. He's finally going to spill his feelings for me. But nope, the guy dropped the surprise that he's actually gay and had been trying to force something that just wasn't happening. So after that boozy night, he figured out who he really was and realized he wasn't into girls. Total win-win though. They became besties and the guy found his true self in the process. Story 2. For the past few weeks, I've been on 5 to 6 dates with this guy, a cop I've known for years. Those dates stretched out over 3 weeks. Wait, is that a normal pace for dating? I'm actually quite new to this whole dating thing. So back to my story. Yesterday, I got a text from the guy. I'm really enjoying hanging out with you. He texted, I know we're not boyfriend and girlfriend material, but I can see us being great friends, he said. Today, he asked me out for lunch and casually mentioned a date he had last night. He explained it wasn't much of a date, more like a friend date, similar to what we do. And just like that, I'm pretty sure I've landed in the friend zone. Seriously? I've always appreciated that men tend to be straightforward. He's a cop and a veteran, so I doubted he'd play games like that. A friend offered an interesting perspective, saying, see, what he's thinking is that he's the one in the friend zone due to a lack of input from you. That was his last-ditch effort for you to jump in and say, hold the phone, ask him what makes you two not couple material. The second part was him trying to see if you'd react. He wants you. Another friend mentioned that it might not be a game at all. Perhaps he's just testing the waters because he's nervous or thinks I'm out of his league. Funny how when girls do it, it's often seen as mind games, but maybe it's not so different. That friend also reminded me not to generalize cops or veterans since they're not a homogeneous group. I happen to know a guy who's almost out of the Corps, with 5 years of police work under his belt and a guaranteed career as a cop once he finishes school. He shared that what the guy did was a pretty common tactic. Cops and veterans, just like anyone else, prefer not to face flat-out rejection. So I felt a bit bad that I missed those signals. I was, after all, really unaware that he would feel that way. Story 3. There was this guy who used to come over to my house regularly. He insisted on cuddling and watching movies the whole time. He'd keep me up all night on the phone, claiming he slept better when he could hear my voice. Good morning texts were a daily thing, and he didn't miss a chance to hold my hand whenever the opportunity presented itself. Then out of the blue, he went and told his best friend that he wished I would just get over it. Some friend tried to console me, saying that the guy sounded like a real jerk who led people on to make himself feel better. A classmate of mine shared a similar story. She mentioned that there was this lady doing the same thing to her. Every time she tries to move on, this lady gets clingy. Earlier today, she was flirting with me, and I didn't reciprocate. It turned into a serious conversation, and she admitted, I'm not ready to settle down forever. I wish I was. It's clear she wants to be with me, but this is just speculation on my part. She thinks she shouldn't want a relationship and should just have some fun instead. Little does she know that even though I still have feelings for her, I can't be with her anymore. I'm trying to spare her feelings just like she's been sparing mine. Story 4. In my class, there was this girl who kept glancing at me, giggling and stuff. Then I started finding notes with hearts and things in my locker, inside my bag, on my desk, and basically everywhere. I knew it was her because I recognized her handwriting. She wrote things like, I love you and I want to be your slave, and as time went on, the messages got weirder. Like, when are we going to get married? I want you already. She's actually a bit of an oddball in my class, kind of scary, and I'm just not into her at all. So I decided to walk up to her and say, I'm sorry, but I can't accept your love offer. My heart can't go down that path. Is it alright if we keep some distance as friends? Heh, that little crush escalated quickly. And seriously, love notes everywhere, bearing over-the-top sentiments, that is definitely a red flag. But kudos to the guy who politely rejected the girl's feelings, even if it got a bit cringy. Keeping things friendly sounds like the best approach in this type of situation. Story 5. See, in my experience, a solid majority of males are oblivious to hints that chicks think are blatantly obvious. I was talking to my boyfriend the other day about before we got together, and a lot of the things I did try and let him know I was mega into him weren't even noticed. In the end, a simple, I'm into you, we should go out, does the trick really well. Long story short, men suck at getting clues from women, partly because of evolution and social dynamics. So ladies, don't throw hints, throw bricks. Otherwise, we'll never know. Then you get the guys who assume every woman wants their babies and the rest who assume that nobody loves them. Ooh, something came in the mail today. I wonder what it is. It's Rufus Rugs!
Got him!
Now, hopefully after this ad plays, you two can say you got him! A rug from Rufus Rugs. Now me and the boys have been grinding nonstop 24/7, making one-of-one hand-tufted premium rugs. Now there's a chance you own a carpet that looks something like this. Let's just be real, it's time for an upgrade. And luckily for you, me and the boys from Rufus Rugs are at your service. We don't make those average cheap quality looking rugs. Nope, not gonna happen. Each one is handcrafted to perfection. No shortcuts, no robot assembly lines, and no dropshipping BS. Just pure rug grind. Whether you love anime, sports, cars, or anything else you can think of, we can turn it into a rug. So click the first link in the description and have your custom idea come to life. Story 6. I went on a couple of dates with a guy I'd met through friends, or so I thought. Things escalated and we ended up being friends with benefits. However, just 3 days later, he was already dating another girl. Turns out he thought we were both just lonely and hanging out. At the time, I thought he was the bee's knees, and yeah, we're still great friends to this day. Needless to say, every time I saw him, I couldn't help but cry. It was a tough experience for me, and it changed the way I approach dating. I friend-zoned guys before, but never since that day. I made it a point to be very upfront and honest now. It's surprising how much worse than heartbreak the friend-zone can feel. Story 7. I reconnected with a college friend on Facebook after 8 years. He had gotten married to his college girlfriend, which was no big deal. We stayed in touch through occasional Facebook messages and chats, and surprisingly, we became good friends. When he came to my town on business, I met up with him. At the time, I was engaged, so he also met my then-fiancé. He provided much-needed emotional support during my horrendous breakup. I returned the favor when he went through a divorce after his wife cheated on him twice during their 10-year marriage. Throughout that time, he would say things like, "You're the perfect girl. Why are you still single?" We even made plans for him to visit my apartment, drink whiskey, and watch ridiculous movies when he was emotionally ready, but it never happened. He started dating a girl who was 10 years younger than him and me, and he would talk about how every guy wants her and wonder, what does she see in me? She's so attractive. That's when I decided to cut all communication and move on with my life. I had already heard about all the girls he slept with while his divorce was being finalized, so it wasn't like I left right away. It's been 2 years, and apparently they're still dating. I didn't want to be the friend in that situation, always hoping for something that probably wouldn't happen, or feeling like I was putting my life on hold due to a silly crush. My pride took a beating, but that's how it goes. Story 8. I was head over heels for the guy who introduced me to Reddit. He treated me well, paying for my meals and even cooking dinner once. He even offered to meet my parents once when he picked me up for dinner. It all seemed great, right? But then last week we were at the bar with some friends and he brought up the birthday gift I gave him, saying something like, "Yep, she's the greatest friend ever," and went for a high five. Ouch. I had my own friend-zoning moment right there, so I decided to be brave and tell him how I felt. Unfortunately, I didn't get the response I had hoped for, and I ended up shedding a few tears. But then, with the support of my friends, I managed to get through it. They comforted me and tried to put a positive spin on things. They suggested that maybe the guy simply didn't realize I was interested, and if I talked to him about it, he might be open to something more. They believed that he genuinely cared about me. Story 9. I was head over heels in love with my best friend for 3 long years. We were inseparable, doing everything together, going to the movies, having Doctor Who nights, hiking, and more. He'd swing by my workplace just to chat. And every night, like clockwork, he'd text me about which episodes of Star Trek were on. Our connection went deep. He confided in me, sharing his life's ups and downs, and I did the same. He was my rock during my battle with depression, and he was the first person I confided in when I experienced a traumatic event. To outsiders, it seemed like we were a couple. He even encouraged that image when we were out in public. But despite all this, our relationship never crossed into romantic territory. Instead of being honest and telling me he wasn't attracted to me in that way, we continued our charade of couple-like behavior. Then he started dating someone else, and I felt I needed to be brutally honest, even more so than before. I finally told him I loved him, and he responded by not talking to me for an entire year. Eventually, he got married in September. Now I'm engaged, so I guess things worked out for the best in the end. Oh, we've all been there, haven't we? That feeling when love seems just a step away from someone super close. But hey, props to the girl for opening up, even if it led to a year of silence. Life has its twists and turns. You don't always get what you want, but guess what? You often get what you need. Just like how this girl found her way to a lasting relationship. If you're the person who doesn't want to stay stuck in that friend zone and wants to shoot their shot, show some love by giving this video a like and hitting that subscribe button. Now let's keep the stories coming. Story 10. I found myself seriously attracted to a coworker, and our friendship blossomed quickly. We spent a lot of time together, going on trips, sharing hotel rooms, and generally enjoying each other's company. But despite our closeness, he never made a move. It all changed during a trip to Vegas. I had a bit too much to drink and decided to take the plunge. I kissed him. To my surprise, he gently pushed me away and confessed that he didn't share those romantic feelings. I felt pretty crushed and embarrassed, but he was there to comfort me until I drifted off to sleep. I was left utterly bewildered. This was a first for me, as I'd never had trouble with men before. He was the only guy who hadn't shown any interest, and I convinced myself he must be gay. After all, he was an attractive guy who had never seemed interested in women. Fast forward a few years, and I learned the truth. He wasn't gay. He simply had incredibly high standards when it came to both women and personal behavior. He ended up getting engaged to an absolutely stunning, incredibly cool, and accomplished woman. I'm fully aware that jumping to conclusions and assuming he was gay because he wasn't into me makes me a bit of a scumbag moxie. But life is a learning experience, and I've certainly learned from this one. Story 11. So here's a little story about how I may or may not have unwittingly friend-zoned a girl a few years back. Back in high school, I was working in an animal hospital. There was this girl around my age. We hit it off pretty well, shared laughs and jokes during work shifts, and just had a good time as friends. After a few months, rumors started swirling that we had a thing for each other. I dismissed these rumors as just nosy coworkers. Frankly, I didn't have romantic feelings for her. Then one day she approached me and suggested we grab some pizza after work. We hadn't hung out outside of our workplace before, so I figured, why not? It was a fun outing, but my coworkers labeled it as a date, to which I protested, saying we were just friends. However, she must have overheard because she then asked me outright if I wanted to go on a date with her. I replied that I wasn't really seeking a relationship at that point. Around that time, I left the hospital and naturally, we started drifting apart. I began dating a girl from high school not long after. A few weeks later, I decided to reach out to the girl from the animal hospital, only to find that she was quite upset with me. It turns out she had mustered up the courage to ask me out over a considerable period, and my response about not looking for anything, followed by my swift entry into a new relationship, had deeply hurt her feelings. I felt terrible about it, and honestly, looking back, I wish I'd taken her up on that date offer. She was an amazing person. Story 12. Alright, ladies, let's talk about the friend zone. Back in high school, I had an enormous crush on someone. I was head over heels for them. I thought, like in those 90s romantic comedies, that friendship was the secret path to becoming boyfriend and girlfriend. You know, the ones that promised the shy, quiet loner could transform into the dream partner with a magical makeover montage sequence, but it became clear that this person didn't see me in that way. They just wanted to be friends. It was disappointing, but I accepted it. And almost a year later, I started showing interest in someone else. That's when my former crush broke down in tears. They were afraid of losing me and didn't like the idea of me being with someone else. Being young and naive, I saw this as a glimmer of hope, thinking I might have a shot. But nope, over the next 2 years I faced constant rejection, yet whenever I showed the slightest interest in someone else, it triggered more tears. That, my friends, is the friend zone. Story 13. I fell hard for a guy and we had a casual fling that spanned 2 months, spread over 5. He even serenaded me at one point. Then, out of the blue, he drops the bomb that he wants to get back with his ex. Ouch, but as life goes, I somehow eventually moved on and all seemed to be fine. After 6 months, he reached out, needing someone to talk to. Being the kind soul that I am, I agreed and hopped in his car. We went for a drive and he started venting about his, you've guessed it, ex-girlfriend. It got pretty intense, with him even reminiscing about the spot where they had some steamy encounter. He spent a good 2 hours dissecting his feelings for her and why she drove him head over heels. Then he dropped me off at home and poof, he vanished from my life. Awesome, right? A friend of mine told me she could totally relate to my roller coaster of a story. In her version, the guy didn't drive her around, he just came crawling back. Unknown to him, she gave him a second chance. Then, a couple of months later, he pulled a disappearing act and, lo and behold, she spotted him on the dance floor kissing another girl. And then the classic, what she's got that I don't question popped into her head. Life, love, and its tragedies, huh? Story 14. I used to be a guy on Reddit, and I found myself in the situation of what some might call friend-zoning a few women in the past. I wasn't a fan of the term friend-zone, I preferred to think of it as selective dating. There were occasions when I met very attractive women, but I felt that a friendship would be more beneficial for both of us than a romantic relationship. For me, maintaining a balance of male and female friends was essential. I genuinely believed that this was the key to a healthy lifestyle. However, a friend of mine shared an interesting perspective. He believed that the negativity surrounding the concept of friend-zoning didn't necessarily stem from the absence of a romantic relationship. Instead, it arose from the behavior of offering relationship-like benefits and closeness while maintaining a distance, all without explicitly stating, no, I'm not interested. In simpler terms, friend-zoning had come to represent taking advantage of someone who was attracted to you. So there was a clear distinction between this negative version of friend-zoning and what I like to call selective dating. If you were honest about your intentions, set boundaries, and didn't manipulate anyone consciously or unconsciously, you didn't engage in the negative form of friend-zoning. Another friend of mine shared a similar perspective. He also had many friends of the opposite gender and enjoyed their company. He had no intention of dating every attractive girl he met. However, as a 24-year-old who had never dated anyone, he started to feel frustrated with being the sweet and cute guy whom all the girls adored as a friend but no one wanted to date. He dealt with a lot of friend-zone situations, and while he understood that most of the girls weren't at fault, he couldn't help but feel a bit of frustration at times. Story 15. I've been working at my current job for about 7 months now as a secretary in a doctor's office. It's a pretty large office with several doctors, and one of them has a son who occasionally comes in to help when he's not in school. Over time, he and I became good friends, and inevitably, I started developing feelings for him. His constant flirting and compliments had led me to believe that the feelings were mutual, so you can imagine my surprise when he pulled me aside one day and asked for my advice. He was planning to propose to his girlfriend, who until that very moment I had no idea even existed. If I had had any remaining confidence, it would have evaporated right then and there. Friend zone. I guess I was now your unwilling resident. Story 16. One of my close friends had left for the army, and knowing how lonely military life can be, I decided to shell out over $500 to travel halfway across America to a less than pleasant city in Georgia. A place that felt like the first level of hell. It had a mall populated by tumbleweeds, a handful of fast food joints, and my hotel. The humidity was suffocating, but despite the less than ideal setting, it was all worth it just to spend a few days with him. We had been friends since middle school, the kind of friends who were there for each other throughout heartbreaks. His girlfriend and my boyfriend both had their turns breaking our hearts. Our friendship was beautiful, so much that people often mistook us for a couple. I'll admit I got caught up in that idea. So I ventured to this Georgia city to reunite with him. Our meeting was like something out of a movie. A sweet running jump hug combo, introductions to his army buddies, shakes and burgers at an old-fashioned diner. The following day was filled with cuddles, laughter, hand-holding during a trip to the one-horse mall, and him helping me pick out a cute summer dress. He even initiated a few kisses. It was magical, like a story unfolding on the silver screen. I was so inspired by the overflowing emotions that night that I even wrote a poem. A few months later, he returned home, and I invited him over for a Skyrim gaming session with some friends. He declined. I suggested going out to dinner. Again, a no. I even proposed hanging out, watching movies, cuddling, making hot cocoa, or even just a drive-by high five. Silence. Nothing. Nada. And the guy lived just down the road. Turns out his ex, the one who had dated his best friend while he was away, told him to stop hanging out with me. When I confronted him about it, I received the classic response, "We make better friends than a couple anyway." So there you have it. I just spent too much money to see a guy who wants absolutely nothing to do with me. Story 17. I had a huge crush on my study buddy in college, and one night he casually looked at me and said, "You know why we're such great study buddies? Because we never have to worry about physical attraction or chemistry." Now my story might not fit the traditional definition of friend-zoning because I never confessed my feelings to the guy, but hey, that's life. Here's what I've learned from all these stories about girls who ended up being friend-zoned. When guys get friend-zoned, it's like, "You're such a great guy and would be the perfect boyfriend, but you're just not the right one for me." Translation, "You're nice, but I'm not attracted to you. Yet let's still hang out." But when girls get friend-zoned, it goes more like, "Even though we've already been hanging out like crazy and have done things that are widely inappropriate for a normal friendship, i.e. hand-holding, cuddling, making out, sleeping together, I don't want to have a relationship with you." I can't say which is worse, but they both suck a lot. In my opinion, when this happens to you, just cut the perpetrator out of your life until you absolutely have no more feelings for them. Yeah, it sucks to lose a friend, but it sucks more to be emotionally used in. I'd argue that in those two situations I mentioned above, women might have it worse. One physical touch, anything from cuddling to home run, gets involved, people tend to get way more attached, and it's harder to deal with rejection. So yes, it's possible to do the deed and still end up devastatingly friend-zoned. Nobody really wants to find themselves trapped in friend-zone, right? Yet, in the pursuit of happiness, we still might slip and fall right into it. But guess what? Like I said, life keeps on rolling and there are tons of chances out there to find the best friend/loving partner you ever wanted. So if you've heard that "we're better off as friends" line before, don't let it get you down. Remember, every rejection is just a stepping stone to finding someone who just sees your worth. So to every girl and guy out there, keep being your amazing self. Trust me, you'll find the right person out there waiting to make your world a whole lot better. And if you like this video, I bet you will sure love, how did you find out someone had a crush on you? Story 2 is awesome. See you there.